All right, it's 10:05. We've waited long enough, so let's kick things off. As I said, my name is John. Right here, I have my co-founder, Paul Dashevsky, and he's going to be talking to you guys all about what you need to know when it comes to finding a contractor and working with a contractor for any type of ADU project. Paul has many, many years of experience both building ADUs and working with contractors in general. He's flipped hundreds and hundreds of homes over the past 10 years. So when it comes to knowing what to look for, and especially knowing how to work with a contractor, whether it's a general contractor or even a subcontractor, Paul is the guy. So I'm going to pass it off to Paul to tell us what we need to know about finding a reliable general contractor for an ADU.
Thanks, John. All right. Without further ado, let's jump into this. Yeah. So, why am I qualified to talk about this? Well, I've had my fair share of headaches before being part of Maxable. Like John said, I renovated over 300 homes. And I've had my fair share of experiences with good contractors and sadly with bad contractors as well. So I'll share with you some of my learnings from those stories. And I built 6 ADUs for myself in the last 5 years since ADUs have been approved. So I've had that experience as well. So let's jump in. Uh, do you really need a general contractor? Sometimes we get calls here at Maxable, people asking if they can, if this is a DIY project, and we kindly tell them that it's not. And I think you guys all probably know that if you think you can build your own house, if you're confident having built your own, your own residence, then you can certainly build an ADU. But I think most of us, myself included, this is not a DIY project. An ADU is a house. It has everything that a house has. It's just smaller. So I'm not sure why people think it's a weekend project. Certainly it's not. And then you want to do it right. You don't want to DIY it. You don't want to handyman it because this is on your own property, whether it's a rental or your own residence. My property is the biggest investment I have. It probably is yours too. The last thing I want to do is build something shoddy to that jeopardizes the value of my property. Here's what we see a lot. I like a deal. You probably like a deal. When I see my shoes on sale, when I see my coffee K cups on sale, I snag it. It's a little different with building something like an ADU because with construction, you have to think a little bit deeper about how someone could give you a deal like that. They're not selling hundreds of thousands of Nikes, right? They're just building this one thing for you. So how are they going to give you this great discount? If they're going to save you 20%, they're not going to do it for free. They're still going to want their profit as a contractor. So are they going to use cheaper materials? Is that how they're going to save? Is that okay with you if they're using materials that aren't up to snuff? Are they going to use cheaper labor? Are they going to find some labor and some crew and some workers that are cheaper and less experienced? Is that okay with you? So the idea of saving 20%, I love that in theory, but you got to think through that a little bit. So you got to be a little bit skeptical. So be careful of discounts like this because obviously things can go very wrong. Your Nikes are going to be fine. It's the same pair of Nikes that they made, at full price. But when you pay less or you find the wrong people for construction, it could be a nightmare. And trust me, I know this from personal experience. The last thing you want to see is that the finished product is terrible or the contractor coming back to you and saying, yeah, I underpriced this and I need more money. They leave the project for months at a time or weeks at a time, incomplete projects, and then just waiting on them with delays. So when it goes wrong, can go really, really wrong. And I think I read somewhere that a bad renovation is one of the most stressful things you can go through in life, kind of up there with divorce and public speaking. Okay, so handyman's gonna be cheaper, but I would never, ever, ever use a handyman to do something like an ADU. And we get that question. That's why it's one of our slides. Um, I could call myself a handyman. You could call yourself a handyman. Anyone can call themselves a hand. Doesn't mean make them qualified to build an ADU. You need a real general contractor. Why? Because they have a license, they have insurance, they have a bond, they have experience. You can vet them. There's just no question in my mind that hiring the right contractor, not a handyman, is what you need to do. We've heard plenty of horror stories. We talk to people every day about building an ADU, or maybe they're in the middle of an ADU, and we get this kind of story all the time that somebody hired a quote unquote general contractor, but they just couldn't do the job. And the problem with someone like that can't seem to do the job or starts to lose money is they literally just disappear on you. And again, as you can probably imagine, being left with a half finished project and having spent all this money and not knowing whether it was done right or wrong, it's 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 up there with some of the most stressful things you can handle.
Hello.
So okay, next. When you hire a general contractor, what you're getting is someone bona fide, right? So you can check this certainly, but they need to have to be licensed. They need to have general liability insurance, and that's in case something goes wrong on the site, something breaks, something gets damaged. They need to have a surety bond, which is their kind of insurance policy that they meet their obligations. And if they don't, you can go after their bond. And then one thing that's not on here because it's not required by law, but I like to see a contractor have it. Everyone we vet has to have workers' compensation insurance. And that makes sure that if one of their crew or staff gets injured on the job, falls down on the job, that you're not liable for that. That's the insurance policy. So again, workers' compensation insurance, general liability, surety bond. That's what your contractor needs to have. Just to pass the test, just to pass the general contractor's exam, they need to have at least 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. They need to pass a test. They need to have someone vouch for them, so on and so forth. So again, another reason that you need a general contractor. I think I've probably convinced you of that already. Now, you're going to find a general contractor. They're not all the same. There's, in LA County where we're here, we're located. There's over 20,000 general contractors. So certainly not every one of them is qualified to build an ADU. Some of them do commercial work. Some of them do industrial work. Some of them just do kitchens. Some of them just do outdoors. You are looking for someone that's specifically experienced with ADU type work or building new homes. That's fine. Or building ground up ADUs. If they've only done kitchens, you don't really want the guy, doing their first ADU with you. That's a risk. So, that GC that we're looking for that specializes in building ADUs or new homes, they handle a lot of stuff. What do they need to do? Well, they need to have all the crews and subcontractors to handle every specific trade of your project. On the last ADU I did, I counted up the number of skilled trades that we needed. It was like 25. A flooring sub or a crew member is not the same as a tile guy, which is not the same as a roofing person. So there's quite a few subs and pieces that they have to bring together. That's part of what you're paying them for, is to bring all those people together to build you this finished structure. Obviously, they need to bring everything together at one time. They need to get the raw materials ordered, the correct materials, all the products there at the right time. They have to know that you have to order windows 6 weeks in advance to get them there at the right time so that they're ready. They need their stucco people right behind that. There's a supply chain involved. And then they have to schedule all that and manage all that. And it's not just one thing. You have the subcontractors, your own crew, how to deal with weather and other type of emergencies that come up. Obviously, homeowners, what you guys need, and meeting with you, making sure they're meeting your expectations. There's city inspections. There's third-party inspections that have to happen. That's the contractor's job. That's what they get paid to do, of course. That's their job. It's not simple. And of course, they have to make sure everything's going smoothly. If they see any issues, they're the manager. The buck stops with them. If you're not happy, then they're not doing their job. They keep the job clean, keep it moving, be respectful of you. So, of course, that's what a good general contractor should be doing. Okay, so next, and I'm sorry I'm blazing through this. I want to be respectful of your time and I want to get through all this. There's two times when you need to start talking to a general contractor when you're thinking about doing an ADU. The first is when you're sort of ready, when you feel like you got your finances in order, the timing is right, and you're ready to, really get pin down some numbers, pin down some ideas of, I want here's the size I want, here's where I want to kind of put it, here's what I'm thinking, and I want to get some ballpark numbers. That's the time when you start talking to a couple contractors to get some high level numbers. They're not going to put together bids for you per se, but you'll have them out to your home. You'll talk about it and you'll say, well, what have you done that's similar? And they'll tell you roughly what that's going to cost and give you a price range. And that's important because you need to have a ballpark. The last thing you want to do is spend the next 6 months working on your project and finding that, you had a budget of 100,000, but the cost is really 200,000. So meet some contractors early in the process. And the second time you'll be meeting these contractors, it could be the same contractors, different contractors, depending on whether you like them or not, is when you have your architect will have drawn your full set of plans, including structural plans, and submitted them for the first time to the city's plan check process. That's the time when contractors can start giving you real bids. We can start pinning down your numbers. You knew the ballpark now, but now you're talking about real specific numbers. You're going to get into the nitty gritty of what kind of materials you want. So that's the second time you'll want to be talking to contractors. And at that point, we really feel like you need to get 3, maybe 4 bids. Okay. And here's why. You want to know exactly where your prices are going to start coming in, very specifically, not ballparks anymore, but very specifically. You can see a lot of detail. We're talking about, this number of doors and this kind of door, and you want to have things to compare with, because the problem comes about when something like this happens. Okay, you have 2 bids on the left and the right, 190,000, 202,000. That feels pretty consistent. Feels like, okay, yeah, I certainly conveyed what I want, and these contractors heard me, and they're within a reasonable price of each other. But this other one is way higher or way lower, and that's not a good sign. There's just no reason for that. It doesn't make sense. That's like if if you wanted to buy a Mercedes and then found one on the lot for $10,000, you'd be very skeptical. You'd say, well, there's something fishy here, and that's exactly what you don't want. So the problem is that these contractor bids, they're never the same. There's no standard format. Everyone has their own format, so it's kind of difficult to understand why one is higher than the other, lower than the other. But certainly when they're that far off, they should be within kind of a 5 to 10% spread. When they're either too high or too low, a contractor's not understanding something, and that's a real problem. But when you get these bids, it's your job to really understand what's included in, or not. Maxable can help spread bids for you and help you understand those bids. That's part of the free service we offer. But if you're doing this yourself, you need to look at every single line item. You can see the bid on the left looks very different than the bid on the right. The prices are all over the place. Every contractor includes different scope, different materials. And so what'll happen is it's not just as simple as picking the lower price, because obviously maybe the lower price doesn't include, your doors, doesn't include your finished flooring material, it doesn't include your cabinet. It just really depends. You have to go through every single item to make sure what's in there is what you expect to be in there. And that doesn't mean that they're trying to scam you, except that $125,000 bid. I really don't like that one. That one might be a scam, but it doesn't mean they're trying to scam you. They just all have a different feeling for what exactly needs to go into a bid. And as you can imagine, if you're in their shoes, they want to give you a good comprehensive view of what this will cost. They don't want to lose money on it, but they also want to give you the lowest price they can. So a contractor might say, well, I'm bidding this for you, but I'm not including, the faucets, or you're going to buy the some of the finished material so that my bid can look lower, but somebody else might include all that material. So you really just have to look at every line item carefully. Okay, so finally, let's finish up with reiterating what we're looking for. We want a contractor that's got a track record with ADUs in your area, has the experience in your city with the inspectors, with the architects you're using. Obviously, needs to have a network of subcontractors and specialists. That goes without saying. If they're experienced, they need to fit within your budget. That's why you're getting multiple estimates. They obviously need to show you that they're licensed, bonded, and insured. You don't want to use someone that's not, and someone that's available, right? There are some contractors that are booked out for 2 years. That's not ideal. So that's what we're here for. Frankly, that's what we do. We've helped many clients, many folks throughout California find and source bids for their ADU. I mean, as you can tell, based on what I've said, we really live and breathe this idea that finding a good contractor will give you a good experience. And you can see from the photos, we've done this quite a bit. I want to just briefly tell you, here is the vetting process we go through before we bring any contractors into our network. So if you're not going to get Maxable's help to connect you with contractors, here's what I think you ought to do as much of this as possible to find your own contractor. You're going to look at their online reviews and ratings. That's pretty easy. You got to go to the Contractor State License Board to make sure that there's no dings on their license, that it's not suspended, because that happens more often than you think, that they've been licensed for a good number of time. You want someone probably that's been licensed for over 3 to 5 years. Check their insurance, check their bond, check their local expertise. We go the extra mile. We do a background check, a financial review of every contractor. We have an interview with the management, and we also call their references. So we call at least 3 references for every contractor to make sure that they had a good experience with that contractor. And lastly, we have them sign a contractor code of conduct. Obviously, we've helped tons of clients, Bay Area, Los Angeles, San Diego. We've just put together this slide of pins. Here's a happy client with their really beautiful ADU with those nice Fleetwood sliding doors in the Bay Area. Cecilia, here's one in San Diego. And here's another one we did here. We helped here in LA. And so, like I said, our partners, we can help you source architects. We can help you source contractors. They're fully vetted, so you can be assured that if we help you source contractors, that you'll have a good experience. Our process is simple. Whether you reach out to us at the beginning or when your plans are ready, we'll connect you with 3 general contractors. We'll send them your plans if you have them. They'll visit your site. Once you get bids back, we talked about that at length. You need to review them carefully. Our staff is well versed. We've seen, as you can imagine, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of bids, so we can help you understand those bids if they're missing anything. And then, obviously, hopefully, you'll hire a contractor you'll be happy with, and our staff stays involved with you throughout your construction process to make sure everything goes smoothly. I'm going to take a breath. I don't think I breathed through that whole presentation. So hopefully you got something out of it. I'm sure I didn't answer every single question, and I can do that. I think we have maybe 5 minutes left. I want to be respectful of your time. But what I really suggest you do is, every project we've seen, everyone has a different project with different questions, different issues for their property, their ADU, their unique situation with SB9 or ADU or JADU or attached or detached or whatever it is. So really, my biggest recommendation is we have a staff that specializes in this. They literally talk to people all day long about ADUs. They're experts at the laws. So if you want to talk about your specific situation, whether it's about contractors or planning your ADU, financing, getting the architecture done, whatever questions you may have, that's why we have our free 15-minute ADU planning call. Just put your email in the chat. We'll send you an email with a link to schedule a call at your convenience. You can get on with our staff one-on-one, and they'll share their experience with you. They'll answer your questions, and that's really what Maxable is here to do. We're here to provide the resources, all free, of course, to help you guys take the next steps with your ADUs. And then when you're ready, we'll connect you with great architects. That's the network we've created. We'll connect you with great contractors. Again, that's the network we've created. That's what we've spent the last 5 years of our lives doing. And that's what we want to be helpful to you.
Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next month.